History. History always is, at best, like this story, a chiaroscuro. The 23 Club by Edward Flaherty. Episode 11. Villa Majlis. Majlis is an Arabic term, meaning a place of sitting, used to describe various types of special gatherings and places of special gatherings among common interest groups, be it religious, administrative, or social. Part 1. Garden Terrace. Toons had not heard a word of Fairouz's comments, and probably wouldn't have even cared anyway. He and the other guys had gotten into sports. Football. They had sat down at a large bay window nook at the one end of the library that had a small bank of 11-inch color LCD touchscreen displays, each with individual Bluetooth wireless headsets. They were talking about local football because of the UAE President's Cup final that night. Because one of the teams had a South African trainer, Toons was all cranked up. One of Fairouz's friends walked over and suggested to Fairouz and everybody, "Why don't we all go to one of the library's private villas to order Lebanese dinner and to watch on a 52-inch plasma flat screen the cup football match of the season? It's Al Ain versus Al Shabaab. There we can eat, talk, and watch sports." All agreed. After the villa was prepared, the library staff led the way. The villa, a 2-room plan on a single level, was elegant, tastefully detailed, but perhaps approaching too closely the edge of extravagant. Entering the front door, a guest could pause in a comfortable foyer before the majlis. The main room, the majlis, or living room, had about 50 square meters, and was furnished with the huge 52-inch flat-screen TV, cinema speaker system, couches, potted plants, tables and chairs grouped casually, all comfortable, all elegant, all welcoming. Discreetly off the foyer there was a guest powder room and a service kitchenette, with its own separate outside service door access and its own toilet. The service kitchenette was more of a well-provisioned galley for room service, a compact series of counters and collapsible tables to keep things warm, keep things cool, just out of sight, around the corner of the majlis itself, but immediately available to service the guests, such as in the presentation of a Lebanese dinner, including fresh warm bread on demand. Through 2 huge, heavy, sliding, but smoothly rolling and nested hand-carved teak doors, the majlis connected to the second room, a bedroom. In the bedroom, about 36 square meters, the guest would find a supersized king bed, a private nook seating area with 3 chairs and a table, and a massive ensuite bathroom with jacuzzi, separate rain shower, walk-in closets, etc. The villa style was a blend of the best of structural wood from Bali with the best of architectural detailing from the Alhambra, finished in the Emiratis' cultural code of visual shapes, forms, and proportions, all softly inviting, in restrained colors. For Chalmers, though, the real treat came when he discovered a private garden terrace, accessible only from the bedroom. He slid open the glass door to the terrace. It was a sensual, tastefully assembled, intimate garden of breathtakingly beautiful plants, water, architecture, furnishings, lighting, all in a microclimatically improved environment. The garden, about the same size as the bedroom, featured exotic tropical plants, fragrant gingers, bromeliads, dwarf bananas in variety, and, to top it off, a well-established Bauhinia galpenii and a Tibuchina granulosa, both luxuriant in bloom. The Tibuchina was large, shrub-like, actually more like a small tree with carefully selected and well-pruned multiple trunks, a very well-proportioned artistic presence. The Bauhinia was a bushy shrub, kind of rough, rampant. It had started clambering through the lower branches of the Tibuchina. The resultant intermingled blending of floral purples and oranges softly pulsated, delicately vibrated before Chalmers' eyes like a cloud of dancing butterflies. Chalmers found this garden experience dizzyingly beautiful and technologically advanced. He sat down on an outdoor cushioned chair and saw, tucked into the plants, an exquisitely detailed Islamic-themed chadar water feature, integrated with a just barely discoverable and totally private jacuzzi and outdoor shower. All the garden terrace features were comfortably located under a high-tech, movable shading canopy which silently opened and closed, automatically, according to real-time sensors for temperature, humidity, wind, and sun position. This high-tech feature was hidden within a traditional Barasti shade structure that, with soft indirect lighting, blended the entire garden terrace into a culturally appropriate work of art. The enclosing perimeter privacy wall had random insert combinations of colored and lighted glass blocks, along with lesser accents of similarly proportioned fenestration, a blend of restrained cubism with modern arabesque. As the privacy wall reached the edge of the paved terrace, there was an enlarged insert, 16 by 9 format, a touchscreen digital display with the title, "How This Garden Works." Chalmers followed the story sequence, which explained the Barasti microclimate modification, the contained planting soil, the recycling of irrigation water, the mulch and compost program that permitted acid-loving plants to grow sustainably. Chalmers thought, useful information geared to the casual guest, a garden interpretation, a gutsy IT inclusion. Part 2. Cross-cultural. Different cultures in the same landscape. Different landscapes under the same culture. Cultures change, landscapes change. In the long run, the discussion was little different than a dog chasing its tail. Inside, Toons and his 2 Emirati acquaintances settled in for their football match. Jean-Claude and Fayrouz arrived outside in the garden to sit and talk with Chalmers. Jean-Claude recalled a recent quote he had read from Paul Bowles. You both know Paul Bowles, don't you? An American author, now deceased, who lived nearly 40 years of his life in Morocco, writing short stories that bridged the gap between traditional Moroccan culture and modern Western culture. Chalmers was more absorbed in something hidden in a garden corner, a collection of gingers just beginning to flower. Fayrouz answered Jean-Claude, saying, "Go ahead." Bowles explained that he found a difference in the way the 2 cultures lived with the concept of time. Bowles wrote, "In America or Europe, the day is divided into hours, and one has appointments. Here in the Maghreb, the day isn't measured. It simply goes by. If you see people, it's generally by accident. Time is merely more or less, and everything is perhaps. It's upsetting if you take it seriously. Otherwise, it's relaxing, because there's no need to hurry, plenty of time for everything." Jean-Claude then asked, "Fayrouz, do you see this difference in perception of time as having any impact on the changes in Emirati lifestyle during the modernization of the last 40 or 50 years?" Fayrouz thought for a moment and said, "In fact, the prayer calls set a diurnal, a daily rhythm. That has not changed at all. But I have detected a change, something like that, though derived from the harshness of the landscape conditions here in the empty quarter. Movement and activities have always been driven by the need to survive, and the climate, it is so intense, it forbids movement, it forbids activities. He continued, with dependable electricity, water, and air conditioning, people are now more uniform in daily activities throughout all seasons of the year. Chalmers was listening now. By harshness, do you mean a harshness like frozen winters in temperate climates? Not exactly. You have to move to keep warm in temperate winters. Here, it is reverse and opposite. Winter is our most comfortable season. During the summer, moving exhausts resources and induces stress. Climate used to affect time more in the past than it does today. Fairouz paused. He let his eyes be hypnotized by the refreshing play of a thin layer of water, rippling over the raised fish-scale patterns, over the chador's translucent, gold-flecked, green and blue glass mosaics. They all sat without speaking. Jean-Claude asked Fairouz, "Then, your Western consultant's preoccupation with daily schedules these days does or does not cause a fundamental misunderstanding at the base of communications?" Fairouz answered, "We are making every effort to improve the quality of life for our people. We appreciate the attention our consultants give to their careful use of time." He continued, "There may always be communication barriers due to the extreme differences in cultural heritage, but these can be worked out." Chalmers, with just the slightest hint of temerity, said, "Time aside, Fairouz, may I ask you this? Regarding cultural differences, or let's say cultural gaps, what do you think about the Kafir gap? You know, the fact that Muslims are taking advice and instruction from non-believers? Does that ever get in the way, Fairouz?" Fairouz turned his eyes from the glass mosaic, the Chadorwater feature, to look at Chalmers. The Bose speakers were softly emitting the staccato hand-clapping of a traditional Emirati purling song. As it finished, Fairouz pulled his ears away from that too, and said to Chalmers, "I was educated at Harvard, and I am proud of my education. When it comes to Kafirs, it is just like you say in the marketplace, buyer beware, caveat emptor. We listen, we question, we discuss, we decide, and we take action. It is just that simple." Fairouz then paused again, this time letting the delicately soothing sound of the trickling water absorb his senses above all else. His eyes began wandering among the healthy, the beautifully flowering plants. He asked, "Tell me, Jean-Claude, how can anyone say we must only use native desert plants in our gardens, when we can have this beauty we are sharing right now, right here in front of us, in this beautiful jewel of a garden?" The rhetorical question silenced both Jean-Claude and Chalmers. It was abundantly clear to all three that the desert plants were stubborn, survivor plants. And it was equally clear that the desert plants were part of the desert ecosystem, with reptiles, insects, and arachnids that endanger the lives of humans. Household garden plants of civilized life should be soft, delicate, and inspirational, in beauty, touch, and sensual seductiveness, or at the very least useful, for family food, for family health. The plants of a civilized home would never be the desert plants. Part 3. Emiratis Challenge Tunes. Sharing food. The sharing of food among humans. It is always an interesting cultural insight. Here, these days, on the edges of the Rue Bel Khali, it is always a jolly bit of fun, of plenitude. Chalmers noticed a burst of activity inside, in the Majlis. The Lebanese dinner was being set out. They all went inside for cold meze. They ate leisurely, and were about to sit down for the second half of the game when Jean-Claude took a phone call. that required his departure. As he prepared to leave, he arranged to have Chalmers' overnight bag removed from his SUV and brought to the villa. Then he apologized to all, leaving them to watch football and finish dinner. As they finished their dinner with Lebanese sweets, then coffee, they all watched the second half together. The game dominated conversations until after it had been concluded, when Fairuz and his friends turned discussion back to CTF and their projects. They suggested that Toons might find it useful to understand a bit of the life that Emiratis would be leading as they used the new projects his company was developing and building. Toons rejected the proposition and explained, "At CTF, we pay the world's best consultants to make those observations and design accordingly." "You are missing the point," Fairuz's friend said. "How can you determine if they are right or wrong in their conclusions?" His impatience and short temper emerging, Toons, the only one drinking alcohol after dinner, let the liquor show in his curt response. "That is what you guys are for. You, Emiratis, have to say what is right or wrong." They persisted in a gentlemanly way and finally suggested, "Let us all go out to the desert. The weather is beautiful. The temperature is cool. Our uncle has a huge farm just near Al Ain. Let us show you some customs in our own home." Toons was still not convinced. A rare opportunity indeed, thought Chalmers, on the other hand. They continued to press Toons. "This is required for you to be managing the buildings of our future." Then Toons saw an angle, and now was thinking this might be fun. He suggested, "Maybe a friend of mine from our marketing department in the office can come too. I'll call him." Chalmers, recalling he had a flight out of Abu Dhabi at 3:30 a.m., checked his watch, then offered his apologies, and bowed out. He told Toons he had to leave town briefly, to finish up his last project over the next days. In reality, it was his trip to Singapore, to pick up some silk textiles for Madge. He promised Toons he would be back before the end of next week to personally hand-carry the Liwa Kasar project external finishes to success for CTF. Fairuz, his car VVIP parked just near the villa, bowed out too, and offered to drive Chalmers to the airport. Part 4. Bond. As Toons, along with the other two Emiratis, took off to pick up Toons' friend and head out to the desert, Fairuz smiled. With that sly, knowing smile, he looked at Chalmers and suggested, "A night in the desert with their second uncle, Sheikh Elam, would be better for Toons than any of Sir Richard Francis Burton's 16 volumes of 1001 Arabian Nights. In fact, it might be just exactly what Toons needs." Meanwhile, Chalmers loaded his bag in the back of Fairuz Cayenne, Turbo S, Luma XXX tuned, all a soft pearlescent taupe outside, with carbon fiber accents, matching taupe 22-inch wheels, the de Rigueur low number plate 050, and under the ventilated hood, a bored and stroked supercharged 710 horsepower engine. Chalmers, absorbing the tricked-out combination of beauty and sheer power in this vehicle, again thought, back in the Middle East, oil style. He realized time was short for boarding, and asked Fairuz how were they going to travel the 140 kilometers and arrive at the airport on time. Fairuz said, "It is simple. Haven't you heard of the 23 Club?" "The 23 Club? No, tell me." "The 23 Club is exclusive. It is Emiratis only, and it is not official. It is, how do you say, word of mouth. So I am not really surprised you haven't heard of it. It is exclusive only for those who travel between Dubai and Abu Dhabi in 23 minutes or less." What? Chalmers was astonished. He knew it was a bit more than 140 kilometers between the two cities. He knew that between the cities, the Sheikh Zayed Road speed limit was posted at only 120. He also knew that many expats drove it regularly between 130 and 160, and from time to time he had seen the fast lane used for 200 to 220, but 23 minutes? That must mean nearly 300 kilometers an hour. Fairuz explained. It usually is done by the more sensible among us in the middle of the night, between 1 a.m. and 4 a.m., like right now, a time when, in general, very few expatriate workers are out on the roads. As he finished, they pulled out of the one and only library, encountered only a car or two until they reached Jebel Ali, after which there was no longer any traffic. Sheikh Zayed Road had a wide, secure median, limited access, and 6 lanes in each direction, 4 travel lanes and 2 fully paved shoulders. Fairuz got into lane 3 and set the automatic speed control at 250. Fairuz, this is too much. Even though the road is wide, clear, empty, even though the road quality is excellent and there are high-lux streetlights all the way, I am seriously edgy at this speed on a public road. Fairuz said, there are a few of us who are disappointed because, even though our country has built excellent roads, they are heavily used most of the time by the huge number of expatriate workers. Traditionally, he added, we are accustomed to open spaces, moving whenever and wherever we want. At this time of night, with no other traffic, we can enjoy the driving. The weather is fine. Be brave. He pulled out his midwak, his pipe, and asked, Chalmers, do you smoke? Chalmers, still edgy about the speed they were driving, but trying to relax and work through it, said, yeah, a little from time to time. Good, Fairuz said. Try this. It will help calm you. We will be there before you know it. Chalmers, trying to forget that they were going 250 kilometers an hour, watched Fairuz load the small bowl of the short pipe. As he was observing the small amount of tobacco per bowl, sufficient only for 1 or 2 inhales, of all things, a Blues Brothers dialogue flashed into his mind. Then he thought with a smile to himself, this time we are not on a mission for God. A bit more relaxed from the strained chuckle, he watched as Fairuz knocked out the spent ashes into the ashtray. Fairuz then told Chalmers, these kinds of pipes, midwak, come from Iran originally. This stem is ebony, an antique, with these inlaid mother-of-pearl floral patterns. The mouthpiece and bowl are both modern, brushed stainless steel. While it may remind you of the longer keef pipes from the Maghreb, you can rest assured there is no keef in this midwak. He handed the filled pipe and lighter to Chalmers. You'll find in this midwak the doka I like to smoke, Fairuz continued. Laf Ras. It is not a fruity shisha. It is a strong and finely cut blend. As Fairuz was finishing his description, Chalmers inhaled. The tobacco and herb doka mixture immediately captured his head and senses. He was swimming, deep water, underwater. In the midst of that dizzy gasping for air, Chalmers saw suddenly, in the middle of the road ahead, what appeared to be the figure of a man with his arms up. The thumping, screeching brakes of a big-time panic stop turned it all to black. And silence.